Welcome to the Pastured Pig Podcast, where we share the successes and challenges of raising pigs on pasture. We talk to producers all over the country, from small homesteads to large commercial pasture operations. Whether you're new to pastured pigs or have been raising hogs for decades, we hope you hear new ideas and new perspectives on pasturing hogs. Here's your host, Troy McClung.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Pastured Pig Podcast. It's a cold December evening here. I think we're actually getting our first snow of the year here in West Virginia. Nothing to really worry about. Just a dusting of snow, but it's nice to see it on the ground. I'm actually looking forward to some frozen ground, so the mud will dissipate for a bit. As far as updates here going on the farm, we've put some plans in the works for updating our herd, kind of rotating them out. I think I may have mentioned that last time. Not quite ready to get into the details of that yet, still nailing down some stuff, but anxious to reveal this to y'all, what we're going to be doing here. Going to be trying a new angle, a new venture with our pigs, and it's going to be hopefully an exciting year in 2020 as we prepare for that. So we'll definitely keep you guys posted as we go along. Got another interview this evening that is somebody newer to the pastured pig operation, but in the first year, I like what Jonathan's done. He's gotten some good experience under his belt. But I won't give him more away. We'll dive right into the interview and let him tell his story. So tonight I have Jonathan Nixarian from Roamin Acres, and that's in Aiken, South Carolina. Welcome, Jonathan.
Hey, Troy, how you doing tonight?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks for taking the time to talk with us this evening.
Oh, no, definitely. Thanks for having us.
Okay, so Roamin Acres, I assume that's not related to Vician Acres or...
No.
That's a poor attempt at a joke.
No.
A little southern humor there.
No, it actually spawned my boar. Anytime he gets an opportunity to try and eat my wife's toes, he will. So she started calling him Brutus.
Okay.
So a little bit of a two Brutus Caesar reference there.
All right. Yeah. So I wasn't far off then, was I?
No.
Okay. So even though it's spelled like the southern vernacular of roaming without the G, it has dual meaning. That's the beauty of pig farmers. We have so much depth to us. All right. Well, so give me a 40,000 foot elevation of Roamin Acres. Your setup, the layout of your farm, the kind of look you've got going on there.
Yeah. So we about 3 years ago we bought 21 acres. It's already got a house on it. About 6 acres is clear. Maybe about the size of a little bit, layout of a football field style. And year one, all we did was we just brought chickens on the farm and, make sure we could do that. Didn't want to overload. And, we didn't lose a single chicken the whole year. Second year we brought chickens, and then we brought pigs on in spring this year. And over the course of 2 weeks, we lost all of our chickens.
Really?
And so we brought in new fledgling birds and we expanded the initial sacrifice area, if you want to call it that, around the chicken coop, with the intent that, because we really only have foxes and raccoons for the most part, that a pig would deter that. And shortly thereafter, the pigs made their way into the chicken coop, and the chickens made their way into the pig run, if you will. And so now they all intermingle freely. Yeah. And we haven't lost a bird since.
Okay.
But, it could happen at any time, I'd guess. But so they kind of just intermingle and, share each other's feed when it's still offered. And that right now takes up about maybe 1.5 acres, 2 acres. I've set up one temporary pasture in the woods, but my dogs won't stay out of it long enough for the pigs to get in it. So I got to get the dogs to not knock the electrical fencing down long enough for the pigs to get in there, or I have to go visit my neighbors again.
Right, yeah. That adds additional meaning to Roamin Acres as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. No, so we had cows over the summer, and they'd walk through our 6 acres of grass and go into the neighbor's garden. So we could not convince them not to. So we got out of the cows.
Yeah.
And I don't need my pigs because pigs are a little more destructive on gardens.
Yeah, that's a tough one to bounce back from.
Yeah.
All right. So, so you've got you said 3 right now. So you've got what, a boar and 2 gilts?
Yes.
Okay. So, so how did you go about? First of all, what breed are they, and how did you go about choosing these and finding them?
So all 3 of them are purebred Berkshires. And originally we have about 5 years ago when I started kicking around the idea of trying to do a homestead. We have some friends that live up in Maryland that do Berkshires and they AI with Durocs, and so we were really like the heritage breeds. And with how hot it gets and how much sun we get down here, I really like the darker skinned breeds, so we went with Berkshires. And it wasn't that easy to find down here. I've ended up having to drive 3 hours for our gilts, and it was about an 8-hour round trip for our boar.
Oh, wow.
And then, of course, through the grapevine, I found out I have a neighbor that lives less than a mile away from me that breeds Berkshires after I already had them. And then not even 20 minutes up the road, there's another guy that had 120 piglets on the ground.
Yeah, there we go. That's why we all need to work on our marketing, don't we?
but that's of course after the fact. So
right, that's the way it goes.
But and that's just that is what it is. And we went with the boar because I really scalability wise, AI can get tedious if you get a lot of sows.
Mm-hmm, sure.
And cost prohibitive, whereas a boar can be cost prohibitive if you only have 1 or 2 sows. So I hope to expand, and having a boar on premises will justify that in the long game.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's all about strategy, figuring out what you want to do and how you want to do it. And so, what age did you get these pigs in March?
I got the girls. They were November babies, so I picked them up at the end of February. So they were right at, I think, 11 weeks, if my math's not off.
Yeah.
And the boar I got right at 4 weeks.
Okay. So let's do the math here. Have you allowed them to mingle yet? Have they bred?
They've intermingled since the day we brought them all on the farm.
Mm-hmm.
And the second gilt is in heat now.
Okay.
I've observed him trying, but I don't know if it's taken. So okay. I'm waiting. I think we're about 15 days out from cycle to see if the first gilt made it or settled.
I see. So you're looking just this first round. Just go ahead and let them try to breed as soon as they're available, as soon as they can do that, and then just mm-hmm. kind of see how that falls as far as farrowing goes. Do you think you'll set a farrowing schedule in the future, or are you just going to kind of see how this goes first?
Definitely get a schedule going. But right now I do like the idea of having January, February litters.
Mm-hmm.
But that's right now we haven't thought that far ahead. However, as far as we have kids in school, and certain times of the year is more convenient to not have a lot of chores on the property.
Right.
So scheduling would be ideal.
So what are winters like in Aiken? Do you get really...
Nothing like what you've experienced in West Virginia, I can assure you.
Okay.
So we just now started getting temperature drops. A week ago, it was 90 degrees outside.
Yeah. Wow.
Right now we're getting 40 in the mornings, and it's getting up to 70, sometimes 80 in the afternoons. I joke that we have a rough summer, but we only have about 3 weeks of true winter.
Yeah.
And that's sometime. But it's not so bad.
Yeah, so obviously a winter farrowing is not going to be an issue. In fact, there's a lot of people that prefer the cold weather farrowings, especially if they have shelter and they can draw the piglets away from the sows with the heat lights to keep the crushing to a minimum.
Yes.
All right. So so looking at we've talked about the choosing of the Berkshire. We've talked about the benefits of that. What have you set up as far as have you laid out your farrowing area yet? Are you going to farrow out on pasture? Or are you going to have a specific stall?
So right now, the plan is out on pasture. We initially, when we first got them, we had a 50 by 50 square that they cleared out before we widened it to include the chicken coop. But I left those posts in place with the intent that when we need to, we can restring panels and wire and segregate that and keep the boar away from the mama and the piglets.
Yeah, yeah.
And then there's a 4 by 6 and about 3 feet tall shelter out there for them.
Yeah, that should suffice then. Okay. Mm-hmm. So the the plan will be to keep the boar obviously away from them after the fact, and then you'll introduce them when you're ready to do litters. Are you going to just looking at one litter a year? You think? Are you going to try 2, or does that?
Right now, just the 2 a year, or each one twice or each one once a year.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to have a surplus of piglets that I then can't get rid of.
Sure.
And so I'm kind of testing the waters, see if I'm able to offload those, because realistically, I think at most we'd use 3 a year just for our own personal use. Mm-hmm. And we've already committed to giving one to in-laws,
Sure. Yeah.
And so, but even then, that's a conservative litter of 6. We still have some surplus there.
Right. Yeah.
But if we get provided the opportunity to move piglets, then I would have no problem doing each of them twice a year.
Yeah. Okay. So your strategy going forward, and again, I know some of this is probably still predicated on how farrowing goes, but if you look at Berkshire, so you're thinking 10 to 12 to maybe 14 in a litter. What if you have 2 solid litters like that? What would you do with 20 piglets at that time? Are you going to try to finish them all? You're going to just kind of sell some off?
So when I got them, I actually got them papered. So there is the option for show pigs as well.
Yeah. Okay.
And the boar comes from champion bloodlines that not necessarily desirable for meat pig, but there is that. And then the girls come from heritage meat lines, and so we have that mix there. And so the thought process is we will hopefully sell some as weaners. We'll finish try and solicit interest early for any finishing. And then we'll finish a couple for ourselves. And then there's a couple social groups where someone's always looking for Berkshires or any piglets in general of the heritage breeds. And then I found all 3 of them on it's bestfarmbuys.com is another outlet, and just do those routes.
Yeah. So looking around at your area, when it comes to potential buyers of either wholes and halves or retail cuts, I'm not sure how far you've looked down that path yet. Are you seeing a lot of competition in that area? Is there a lot of pastured pig operations? Is there a demand for pastured pork in that area?
So like I mentioned, there's a farm not even a mile down the road that supposedly has them on their website. They claim it, but I drive past their farm daily. I never see them. There generally isn't a lot of postings on like the local social media or Craigslist for pigs, but there is a slightly higher end restaurant market here, but I haven't begun to pursue that. I was mostly just going to go with word of mouth and friends for starting. But that other farm that I mentioned 20 minutes away, when I spoke to them and learned they had Berkshires, they're saying they're selling them as soon as they hit the ground.
Yeah, yeah, I would think those are still very high demand, especially like you said, since you've got papers on them.
Hmm.
Well, all right, so let's back up a little bit. So when you decided to get pigs, you'd said you'd had chickens on there. You guys had started a homestead. Have you had any? Did you have any farming experience prior to that, and what kind of led you down
Um,
that path?
Not really. I grew up in the suburbs of Los Angeles
Oh, okay. Wow.
as a kid. I mean, there's a lot of ag out there, mostly strawberries and
Hmm.
avocados and grapes. And but it's something I always wanted to do. Um, growing up as a kid, I wanted to be a farmer. I don't think I realized how much work it is
Yeah.
as a child, but it's a lot of fun. I like being outside. I like encouraging my children to be outside.
Sure.
Um, Much easier to do in the winter months than the summer, obviously. But uh, and as you get older and you have kids and you start learning about where our food comes from, and the processes and what gets added to it. Um, it's kind of a know your farmer, and you should know yourself better than anybody else. And so that kind of spawned this. Let's create our own food, and so that's kind of what led us down this path.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. So you mentioned kids and family. Are they on board? Or are they heavily involved as well, or is this kind of this is Jonathan's dream, and we all kind of have to go
Uh,
along for the ride?
so it's funny you say that because that would be echoed exactly by my wife. Like I said, 5 years ago, when you're planning it and you're looking at blogs and websites and pages and YouTube channels, this seems really exciting and a lot of fun. And it's a lot of work and a lot of time to get to where it hopefully is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I sincerely believe once we are able to sit down and have, bacon and eggs and everything from our property, the buy-in will be a lot bigger in that regards.
Hmm.
Whereas right now it's just a lot of work, a lot of sweating and a lot of time. And so that's the goal. The kids I think get it, some more than others depending on the day and how much they have to help.
Yeah.
But but yeah, they're the children especially are on board uh, as long as it's not an all-day task.
Yeah. Now, obviously, you probably have a day gig, or there's or your
Yes.
wife. Are you guys dual income? Or you?
Yes, we both work. I work
Okay.
4 days away from home, and she's 5 days away from home.
Okay. So obviously there's a balance that has to be struck there.
Yes.
How's that been so far? Obviously you don't have piglets on the ground, but you still have chickens and three hogs to keep track of. Has that been an issue yet?
No, we've always been pretty good about splitting duties. So for instance, I get home, I cook dinner, and she helps with homework. So we've just kind of pushed dinner back a little bit, and now I get home and I make sure water's good, all the eggs are collected, everyone's fed, and, tucked in for the night before I come in, and then I feed the other pigs.
Yeah, exactly. Food chain there, obviously. Chain of
Yep.
command. All right, excellent. Well, what have you figured out? Do you have as far as feed goes for your breeders, and then of course for your upcoming piglets? Do you have a feed strategy as far as type and style and how you're going to administer?
Um, so when we started, we were kind of just buying, going to the local bulk store or bag store and just buying, pig chow. Um, there's a couple options around here, and then as I started, I started making my own mix of, black black sunflower seeds, some alfalfa, some rolled oats, and that was just prohibitively expensive.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that turned out digging around. There's a feed mill about 40 minutes away from our house,
Mm.
and they offer 14% hog feed, 16% hog feed, and a non-GMO hog feed.
Oh wow.
I didn't even ask the price of that because I don't think there's a market for that just yet here in the
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I'd love to go that route if there's a demand for it, but I do know off the top of my head, 14% hog feed's 17 cents a pound. So much more fiscally doable than buying a month's worth of feed at a time at the bag store.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I'm sorry, you're 16. I was trying to do the math in my head. I went to public school, so you have to bear with me. But
You're fine.
so $17 for you say for the 12% or the 16% that you're paying per hundred.
It's
Sorry, I do everything by
that's
hundred.
the
Yeah.
no 14. That's 14%.
14,
$17.
okay. Yeah, so 14% at $17. So yeah, that non-GMO is probably 50 to 80% more there. So
Yeah, I actually meant to call them today just to ask, and I got carried away with other tasks.
yeah, that's yeah, that definitely obviously rubs against profit margin, like you said. That value added, that's something your customers have to recognize and have that demand there. And if there's not, then yeah, you really cut into profit margin.
hmm And especially with us not having any profit margin yet.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Making a sucking sound right now, isn't it?
Yeah. Whereas right now at the $17 per 100 pounds, I sell eggs to coworkers, and that almost completely offsets a weekly feed cost for the pigs and chickens.
Yeah, there you go.
So,
well, and then there's obviously your potential customer base for your pork. There is your egg customers and
building relationships now.
Absolutely. Well, so we've talked a little bit about some of your future production plans, but as it's obviously the first year, you're just kind of sticking your toe in the water. What do you see? I mean, if you could wave a magic wand and things go exactly the way you'd want them to, where do you see Roamin Acres in 5 years? Is it a large hog operation, or is it a multiculture?
I would like to be multicultural. I really like the chickens and, like broiler chickens. And I mean, that'd be a dream, right? To be able to just purely focus on the hogs and not, wake up and go into work, and I'd wake up and walk into my backyard.
Yeah.
But I mean, that'd be great. I'm just not sure if there's a local demand for that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of that's the process.
Is Aiken, and I didn't look on a map, is Aiken near any major metro area? What's your
So we're an hour away from Columbia, which is the capital of South Carolina, and then we're right across the border from Augusta, Georgia.
Okay. So yeah, you have a large population around you that you could expand into. Interesting.
Yes.
Well, Jonathan, what have you in your first year raising pigs, what have you discovered has been the biggest challenge so far that you maybe didn't expect it to be that bad?
I didn't expect it to be so hard to get multiple species to coexist when we had the cows and the pigs. I made the mistake of using the same energizer for the whole fence system. And we had a baby bull that would just literally goes through the fence and short it out, and then the pigs would follow.
Yeah, exactly. Have the menagerie loose.
Yeah. And then you have pigs on your back porch. That gets mom's attention. So it gets your attention real quick.
It does. Yes.
So we ended up getting a bigger energizer in separate systems, and it's weird. Pigs, I tell people they're a lot like my dogs. They're excited to see you. They run to you. Sometimes you don't even need a bucket of feed, and they'll follow you across the property.
Right. Yeah.
And they're arguably better than the dogs sometimes.
Yeah, they have tons of personality and they're incredibly smart. So I think as people start to raise them, they recognize that pretty quickly that there's a lot of personality in a pig.
Definitely.
So do you have a story, or do you have a situation this year, and maybe it had something to do with the peak of the heat of the summer, but in a situation where you're so frustrated, you had an issue that you're like, forget it, I quit, I want to be done. Yeah, have you run into that yet?
I did. So about 2 weeks ago, in fact, I'd spent a Friday setting up this temporary pasture in the woods, maybe about a quarter acre of it. I rigged the water, gotten feed over there, driven the grounding rods, everything, soaked through 2 different shirts in the sweat, the heat. And then the next morning I pulled the pig, I lured the pigs in there. I turned everything on and I went inside, woke up my wife, said, "Hey, look out the window. There they are." And in time to see both we have Australian Shepherds pretty much just jump right into the fence and knock it into a bush, and then watch the pigs go straight through it. And by the time I had gone out the house and circled the house to go there, I couldn't find the pigs.
Oh, wow.
And so I jumped on the tractor, went out to the road to go down our other road that borders our property, and my neighbors are already out scaring them back onto our property, and thus began about a 2-hour process to corner them in the woods, trying. Of course, now they're fed pigs, and trying to convince them to come home.
Right. Yeah. Usually the empty belly is the best motivation.
Yeah, and like I said, they just had a full ration, and they were not interested.
Oh, goodness.
And this was, like I said, right on the tail of the summer with the cows having the same problem. I was about done.
That's interesting that the shepherds, I know most dogs seem to be able to pick up on that electric fence and won't have anything to do with it. I know ours won't. Are they immune to it? Do they just crazy about pigs?
They jump over it.
Oh, okay.
There's a slight incline there. I didn't cover it. For the most part, we're pretty flat.
Yeah.
But when you get into the woods, there's little gullies and drainage ditch, for lack of better words. And so our female went to jump over it and didn't clear it, and kind of brought it down into a bush, and it got tangled up. And it was just literally all downhill from there.
Yeah. It's the things, least expected things that mess you up at times, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well,
and normally she wants, she'll come close to them, but as soon as they look at her, she just clams up. So it was really interesting to see her want to be with them.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. So in this last year, what have you discovered is easier than you expected with pastured pigs?
Everywhere you look, they just, you read about how they destroy property, or they, tear up property, kill trees, and, God knows what else. And for the most part, that hasn't been the case. We had a really dry summer, and about the last 2 weeks we've gotten a lot of rain, so they've started to really dig. But for, need some and get to root systems. But for the most part, it looks like you just raked their area, and so it's pretty level, and they haven't really caused a lot of destruction other than foliage.
Yeah, excellent. That's good. So, Jonathan, in your experience that you've had so far, if somebody was where you were last spring and they were thinking about starting with pigs, what advice would you give a new pig farmer?
Build the shelter closer to your location of the food and water.
Yeah. Okay.
It can get tedious.
So I assume so you say you've got food stored in a certain area, and so you're having to do a lot of hoofing it back and forth.
I have it maybe about 100 yards, which isn't terrible, but it's a trek, to walk out the house, walk there, and then circle around. But I think when we combine the chickens and the pigs, it kind of, we go there. I use the bucket to carry the food out there, then I use that bucket to carry the eggs back. It kind of cut down on travel. Yeah.
Streamlining systems.
Yeah. And then, water, especially in the summer, is just, it's so important.
Do you have your pasture area plumbed? Or are you dragging water hoses or carrying buckets?
I have a hose. I have 2 50-gallon drums out there with nipples. And as long as I keep them full, they don't tip them over.
Right, yeah.
And generally, 2 of them will last a full week for them and the chickens. The chickens took to those nipples like ducks to water.
No kidding.
Because I had been in the process of rigging them their own with these little cups and elevating it. And about the time I had finally gotten it all ready and ready to plumb, I realized they had taken to the pig nipples, so I just kind of left it.
That's hilarious. Are you finding a need for a wallow, or do you have access? Do you have the ability for them to access water or shade in that situation?
We have a lot of shade, so they're in about um, 15 of our acres is pretty heavily wooded. Most mixed hardwoods, but mostly pine.
Hmm.
And so what I'll do is when I head out there, I'll turn the hose on just in the dirt and let them have that build up, and then they have and that holds the water pretty well. The pine straw holds a lot of moisture as well, and
Yeah.
then the buckets for just regular drinking water.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, any other advice you would offer to new pig farmers?
Just strap in. They're exciting animals. For me, they speak to me. I feel like there's always something new with them. You don't know what they're gonna do until they do it. And when they get big and they're still super friendly, it's almost, people aren't used to large farm animals coming up close like that. Like cows kind of, keep their distance,
Yeah.
whereas a pig is up in your face, cuddle, rub against you, lean against you, and that can be overpowering to
Right.
some.
Yeah. Yeah. It could definitely be a little intimidating. Yeah, especially when a 600 pounder leans into you to get some rubbing. The next thing you know, you're
Yeah.
laying on your back.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I'll close with this, Jonathan. What is your in the last year of having pigs? What is your favorite thing about raising pigs on pasture?
It's just the experience getting to do this stuff with the kids, and my wife, she goes out there with me too, and um, listen to them describe it to other people and their friends, and when our kids' friends come over and they want to see it and they have all these questions. It's kind of nice bringing that back to the next generation and letting them see, yeah, this is a pig, and this creates pork chop, bacon, sausage, and all that, and that's where this comes from.
Yeah, yeah. It's really a great opportunity to get your kids connected. I mean, it's an education process that is just it's tough to quantify, but it's invaluable when they get to experience it.
Definitely.
Well, all right. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast and taking some time to talk with us and tell us about your setup. Do you have any social media presence? Can people find you online anywhere?
Yeah, we're on Facebook, Roamin Acres, as you mentioned, the Southern vernacular
Yeah, yeah,
without the G.
yeah. Okay. Well, I'll share that in our show notes there that people can see that. And all right. Well, if there's anything, are you on any of the Facebook groups, the Pasture Pig groups?
Yeah. What was it? Pastured Pigs for Health and Happiness, I think is the new name.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I got a MeWe just in case.
Yeah, exactly.
And then there's a couple, breed specific boards or groups on Facebook for, I know there's a Berkshire one. I'm pretty sure there's a Goss one. And then there's, just those. I'm in some, I think just about most of the big ones.
Yeah. All right. Very good. Well, I appreciate you taking the time and talk with us tonight, and I hope you have a great week and your pigs stay in your fence.
Yeah, thanks. Don't we all?
All right.
All right, Troy.
Take care, Jonathan. Well, all right. So there's a take on somebody newer to pastured pigs, and pray that Jonathan has success with what he's got going on down there in South Carolina. Well, if you would like to be on the podcast, or know somebody that would be, or would like to or you'd like to specify a topic that we should take a shot at, just give me a shout. You can obviously reach me at our website, redtoolhouse.com. Just go to the Pastured Pig podcast link. There's a form. You can just fill that out real simple. Or feel free to just drop me an email, troy@redtoolhouse.com. Just put something in there about the podcast in the subject line so I can get it, and we'll incorporate that into our discussion. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. Please give us a review or a rating. That obviously helps other people find us. I know we're a very niche podcast, so probably not going to have millions and millions of downloads. But if you know of anybody that's in the pig raising business or even as a hobby, share this podcast with them if you would. All right. Well, I pray everyone have a great week out in the pasture. Take care.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of the Pastured Pig Podcast. To learn more about our podcast or to submit topics or recommend guests for future episodes, visit redtoolhouse.com.